Hey friends, I'm Patrick God and welcome to this tiny little .NET 6 Blazor and MudBlazor timer tutorial. As you may already know, I want to create a new course, a new app for time tracking and a time sheet where you can track your time with the timer and then add single entries to your day, maybe with the task you have done. Long story short, this timer thingy is quite interesting, I think, so I wanted to extract this already and give you this tutorial here now on YouTube. So what we're going to do is we will create a Blazor web application. We will use MudBlazor for the toggle button. There's actually a cute little MudToggleIconButton, that's the correct name. And with that we have a play button and the stop button. And with this little toggle button, we will then start a timer using the system timers namespace. And with that, well, we see the timer and log the elapsed time then in the console. This is everything we're going to do. So a tiny timer really. And I still hope that it is useful for you. And if so, and you learned something, and if you're interested in the application that is coming, the bigger tutorial with also the timesheet where you add a comment to your elapsed time, the task you've done, and so on, you know what I mean, I guess, then maybe you want to click the like button and also subscribe to my channel. This does mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for that. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get a notification for all the upcoming videos. Again, as always, guys, maybe you also want to subscribe to my newsletter. If so, you get these kind of videos here earlier in your inbox and also early access to upcoming online courses. Not only the time tracker course, but also the big upcoming .NET Web Developer Bootcamp, where we will cover lots of stuff you might want to know when you want a job or do a better job maybe in the .NET development world, meaning Blazor, .NET 6 Web API, EF Core, and also a bit of Git and Scrum and all that stuff. And the last thing, maybe you hear it, I got a little cold, so that's no coffee, that is an empty tea, a sage honey tea, so maybe this helps. Anyways, thank you so much everybody for all your support. I love you forever. So if you want to support me as well, then check out the links in the video description. Thank you so much for that. And now enjoy the tutorial. All right, now for our little tiny timer in Blazor, we create a new Blazor WebAssembly app. We click next and let's call this Blazor tiny timer, for instance. This time I won't check ASP.NET Core hosted because we really want to focus just on the client with Blazor WebAssembly and MudBlazor. And the timer, of course, we use .NET 6, and this is everything for this configuration. Here we create the project. And there it is. All right. And now the very first thing real quick is we have to install MudBlazor, right? So if you already know that, please have a look at the time codes for the chapters. If not, stay with me. This is really quick actually. So we right click the project and then say manage NuGet packages. And then in the browse tab, we look for MudBlazor. There it is, 800k downloads already. Well deserved, I'd say. And now we select our project and click install. Hit OK. I accept. And that should be it already. Let's have a quick look here. And yep, there it is, MudBlazor. And now I was a little confused because I right-clicked the solution and I actually wanted to right-click the client project. That's why I had to select the actual projects in the NuGet manager. But this works as well, of course. So let's close this and then we have to configure MudBlazor a little bit. For that, just Google for MudBlazor install, for instance, and then you should come to this page here, installation, and we already added the package. Now we have to add the imports. We do that here in our imports.razor file. Then we add some font and style references, and that's why I always use this page here, because I'm really lazy, and with that I can just copy and paste all that stuff. So just paste it here. Then a script reference, of course. Add this down here. And by the way, if you want that a bit slower, If this is too fast, then please go to my other MudBlazor installation video, check out the info card, because then we don't do this that quick then. So now the program CS, we add the services, and of course with control period we add the using directive here. And the last thing already are the providers in our main layout Razor. Please note that we actually only need the Mud theme provider here, as it states here as well. But again, I'm lazy and I just copy and paste everything. Okay, let's test that. Oh no, not yet. Let me just change already the index page here. We remove everything. And again, this is just a tiny timer. So what we do is we just add a little text here. And let's say we add our code block with add code like that. And then with control period, we extract that to a code behind file, because I know that you guys want me to do that more often using code behind files. It's a great idea actually. And even though this is a tiny little app, a tiny little, well, let's say tutorial experiment, whatever, tiny study maybe, let's still use a code behind file here. And what we do is first maybe we add a constant called default time, and this is what looks like that. These are the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. And then let's say we've got the elapsed time, which is the default time. So this is actually our start time here. And then I have a little cold, so maybe my brain is not functioning that well, and that's why I have these mistakes in my English today. Hope you accept my apologies. And here now we just add the elapsed time like that. So we've got our Razor file covered. We've got the code behind file covered. Let's start this. Drum roll. We should see an exciting string on the start page. There it is. It is loading. There it is. Okay, nice. So this works already. That's nice. And the next step already is actually our timer. So back to the code behind file. There it is already. And we use the system timers timer for that. If I would just add the type like that, then this would be the system threading timer. This is not what we want to use. We want to use a system timers timer. We call this timer, and this is a system timers timer with, and this is exciting, now the interval. Where is it? Initialize a new instance of the system timers timer class and sets all the properties to their initial values. Yeah, let me just add 1, for instance, for 1 millisecond. Now that we get more information. See, that sets the system timers timer interval property to the specified number of milliseconds. So when we use it like that, then we could say, okay, we only need a timer in, well, 1000 millisecond steps or 1 second steps, but it looks really nice when we really use 1 millisecond. You will see that in a second. And the next thing I want to add here is date time, and the start time for the, well, for the difference we will then calculate and display on the screen. So we will need the current time, we will need the timer, and with that we can actually calculate the elapsed time. A little bit confusing maybe, but you will see what I mean in a couple of seconds. So many seconds today. Okay, now what is happening with this timer? Well, every 1 millisecond in our case, an event is fired, and this event is called on-timed event. And well, let's implement this thing now. So with private void on-timed event, we have a source and we have an elapsed event, event arguments. Okay, for that we need another reference using system timers this time. Lots of timers and seconds and so on. Haven't prepared it like that, so excuse me for all these timers here. And if you're now wondering, well, why are we not adding using system timers before, so we do not have to add the system timers namespace here? Well, let's try that. So let's just remove it. What's now? Again, it wants to use the system threading timer. Bummer, right? So let's just add the system timers here to be absolutely sure. That was my phone. Let me mute this. Okay, and now in here, we get the current time. And this is actually the signal time of our timer. Gets the date time when the system timer's timer elapsed event was raised. So it is the elapsed event. This thing is raised now every millisecond in our case. And now to get this little format here, we say elapsed time is now a string using string interpolation, current time, subtract, and then the start time, right? Simple as that. Now, if we really just wanna see the hours, minutes, and the seconds, we can actually use a substring with 0 and 8, because otherwise we would also see the milliseconds. But I think the milliseconds look really cool, so let's just keep them. And now the very last thing we have to do in this onTimed event is we have to call state has changed, right? So this is no Blazor stuff. With that, we tell our component that it has to re-render itself. Says it here, notifies the component that its state has changed. When applicable, this will cause the component to be re-rendered. And this is what we want to do. So every single millisecond now, this event is raised, and we tell our component, hey, please re-render yourself so that we can see the current elapsed time. All right, so this is what we want to do with this event here. And now we actually have to start our timer. So for that, what we can do is we write another method, start timer. And on initialization, let's also start this timer. So override, and then on initialized, we want to call start timer like that. And now, let me get some space here. What we do is we set our start time again to date time now. Then our timer again as a new system timers timer with 1 millisecond. If you're wondering, we will use that because we will also add a toggle button. So that's why we are resetting these values here. And then we say timer elapsed. And this is now important, and maybe I told you something wrong in the last couple of minutes. It's not an on-timed event. We will use this method here called on-time event to subscribe to this elapsed event. This is which is then erased. So again, every millisecond the elapsed event is raised, and we will now use the on-timed event method here. Okay, hope now this is clear. Then what we can do is we can set auto reset to true. Well, what's that? It says gets or sets a boolean indicating whether the timer should raise the system timer elapsed event only once or repeatedly. Of course, we want to raise this repeatedly. And then the last thing, and this is actually starting this timer, is enabled true. We could also just use the start and stop method. It says it here, starts raising the elapsed event by setting enable to true, and the same for the stop function then. Well, I guess this is up to you. Use the enabled flag yourself or use the start and stop methods. Again, this is totally up to you. All right. And with that, we save this, we rebuild and start the application. And there already is our timer. It is running. Isn't that nice? We can reload this page and it starts again and again and again every single time from 0. Okay, now this is great, right? We have our timer, but maybe we want to control this a bit more. So we add a toggle button. And this is why I wanted to use MudBlazor, because MudBlazor has a cute little toggle button, a toggle icon button to be more exact. So let's go back to our Index.razor file. And now let's use this thing. So this thing is called MudToggleIconButton. All right, and we can actually close it like that. And now this gets some parameters. Now the first thing is we have this toggled parameter here. What does it say? The toggled value. Okay, so for that we need another Boolean flag. Let's call this is running. So is the timer running? And let's add it here real quick. So bool is running. And let's initialize that with false maybe. And since we're already at it, let's already initialize this thing here, or not initialize, let's start it here, is running true. So when we start the timer, we not only set the timer to enabled, we also say our timer is running. Okay, so this is the first thing, and now you can imagine when we click on this toggle button, then it switches between true and false for this is running flag here. All right, next is the actual event. Now, when we click this button, what do we want to do? Well, we will write another function on timer change, but let's implement that in a minute. So as soon as the user clicks on this toggle icon button, the on timer change method is called. And then we can also, well, choose the icons, of course. For that, MudBlazor has lots of icons available. And I want to use the play arrow here. And this looks like that. So icon is add icons material filled play arrow. And then for the toggled icons, so in the other state, then we use add icons material filled and then stop. I think this makes sense. And this is everything, actually. If you don't want to use the toggled changed method here, there is another option. We can also say bind toggle, I guess it is. Yeah, bind toggled, and then we can only use the Boolean flag is running, for instance, but then we have no control over the method. So let's do it like that. We say this is our flag here, and this is then the function we want to call. So let's save that. Yep, I know. Now there's an error. This is the play arrow, and now we got an error. So what we have to do is now implement the on timer changed method. But first, let's also implement the stop timer method, because this is what we want to call. So here we say is running is false. Then let's also write the elapsed time to the console. So a little string here, elapsed time is then our elapsed time. All right, timer enabled is false, and the elapsed time is then again the default time. And then the last thing, void on timer changed. For that, we say if is running, then we start the timer. Actually, if it's not running, we start the timer. And if not, we stop the timer. Okay, and then actually we do not need the onInitialized here because we want to start the timer by ourselves. So this is what we have added. On timer changes. We start the timer if it's not running, we stop it if it is. And with this method then we set the flag to false. We will lock the elapsed time, set the timer to false, or the enabled flag of the timer to false, and reset the elapsed time. So let's save that. Start the app again. We still have an error. On timer changed. Does not exist. Changed. Now it does exist. So let's try that again. There's our application. Okay, we could have changed the design maybe with a flex box, a grid, whatever. And now let's try that. We click on the play button. Timer's running, that's nice. And now we can stop this thing, and there's our elapsed time. Let's try that again. 1 second, 2 seconds. Okay, this works just fine. And it's running and running and running. All right, now I will push that to GitHub, and then of course you'll find the link to the GitHub repository in the video description below as always. Exactly, find the link in the video description to the GitHub repository. And apart from that, if you learned something, I really hope so. And if you have any comment, any feedback, whatever it is, then please write it down in the comment section. And also please like this video and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. It does make a difference. Don't forget the bell icon for a notification when a new video is online. Currently every single week on Tuesday I try to upload a new video. Additionally, maybe the newsletter is something for you to get these videos here earlier in your inbox, and also early access to upcoming online courses like the .NET Web Developer Bootcamp. And the last thing, again, my empty cup of tea here. Thank you so much for all your support, everyone. Guys, I love you forever. It really means a lot to me that you are believing in me and that you are part of this amazing community, really. So thanks for that. And also, don't forget to check out these videos here on the side. Maybe you're interested in some, then please just click on this thing, enjoy the tutorial, grab your cup of coffee or tea or whatever it is, and then enjoy the tutorial. And I hope you learned something. So thanks again for all your support. Thank you very much for watching, for your time, and I hope I see you next time. Take care.